What's up, coaches? This is Corey Harris with the Transition, a real resource for coaches. I have a super special guest here with me today, Coach Brendan Suhr. He's been on, I don't even know what level you haven't coached on, but he's been on so many levels. He's worked with so many high level players, Hall of Fame coaches, and he's a basketball genius if you ask anyone around the basketball industry who knows something about it. So, Coach Suhr, thank you so much just for your time and for honoring us with the opportunity to talk to you.
Corey, as always, pleasure with you, my friend. And, you're one of my absolute all time favorites. So, whatever I can do to help you or any other coaches, that's what I'm here for. That's what God put me on earth for.
Amen.
That's what I'm telling him he did. So that's the deal we got, him and I. But, yeah, no, the only level, Corey, that I haven't coached on is the whole purpose of what I wanted to when I was a high school player in New Jersey. I had an incredible coach, UB Brown, who's an Atlanta resident, and and he was my high school coach, and he was such a profound influence on me that UB was the one that after playing for him as a sophomore, knowing him since I was in ninth grade, I said to myself, that's what I want to do. I want to be a coach,
Wow.
and I want to be a high school coach. And
Mm.
so I totally changed my whole direction of, you know, where I was going to college, and decided that I wanted to teach so I could teach high school and then coach. And, and I think that's one of the really cool things about coaching is that you we have the ability as coaches to be maybe outside of hopefully their parents the biggest influence in their life.
That's right.
And 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 for those of the kids that we coach that aren't fortunate to have a good home situation, we become the most influential person in their life, which is a huge responsibility, but one I think that we are born for and one that we accept, and then we become difference makers. So the 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 whole purpose of me was to become a high school coach, and my mom was a high school teacher. And I remember, I think when I was running the Knicks, and she was 93 years old, and I went to see her in New Jersey, and she said, you've been a disappointment to your father and I." And I said, "Really?" And I said, I thought I'd done all right, a couple of championships, and you know gold medal with the dream team, and 27 players in the Hall of Fame. I thought did all right. She said, "We sent you to college to be a high school teacher and coach, and you never did that." So I said, "I'm sorry, mom. I'll do better in my next
I
life."
lost focus.
I'll do better. Yeah, I'm sorry. But you know what? Only mom can say that to me, and she was right. But so that's the only thing I haven't done. Maybe I can still get a job. I don't know. Maybe I can still.
Maybe. I don't know, man. It's tough out there.
Yeah. But anyway, yeah, it's been great. And then but UB was my greatest influence to become what I became, and to this day. And then it just snowballed from there.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Let's use that as a segue. Talk a little bit about growing up in New Jersey, your family
Uh,
dynamic, 50s and 60s, a lot going on, so kind of take us back.
yeah, yeah, yeah. You guys can read about that in history books. You're so damn young. But it was, none of us had much. I mean, I laugh now. I mean, back in the day, when we would obviously in the 60s and 70s, there's no computers or anything like that. So when I was in grammar school, high school, we'd go out and play at the playground, in the winter,
Yeah.
like watching the Buffalo Bills and the Dolphins last night, a snowstorm. That was like that. And we would go and play, we would shovel off the playground and play outdoors. It didn't matter, and that's just the way it was. There was no access into gyms or anything like that, you know. And the biggest difference is there were no trainers like guys that could teach you how to play like you do and your
Mm,
friends do now.
hmm.
Sure, we just went out and played 2-on-2, 3-on-3, 4-on-4,
Right.
5-on-5,
Right.
and
Right.
that's all it was. And the big difference now is that I think we knew how to play. Kids nowadays don't know how to play
Got you.
because they think going out and shooting is playing.
Right.
You
Right.
but there I have not seen any games at the high school, college, or pro level where they let one guy go out there and shoot 50 times in a row like he does with
Right.
his or whatever. So, and of course, I've never seen too many of the trainers that work on defense. It's all offense because you want a paying customer to come back, and I would do the same damn thing. And but I think and as you know, Corey, if you wanted to play and you were at a popular place to play and there were others waiting, you had to win to stay on the court. So
That's
winning
right.
is an important thing. So taught a lot of life lessons and things like that. But when by the time I got to college, I knew I wanted to be a coach. And instead of working in the summer like a real job, I would work basketball camps, 1 week basketball camps, and I would spend I thought 10 weeks of my summer college break working at camps, and some of them I would go and work for 1 week, some I would go and stay at a place for 2 weeks, etc. But that's where I made my relationships, my contacts, got a chance to practice coaching because back then there were no AAU things. Everything was summer leagues and camps. If you're
Okay.
a high school player wanted to be evaluated, so
Okay.
yeah, so I came up through the 5-star basketball camp, which was the camp, the number one camp in the country. It was in the Pocono Mountains and stuff at that time, and by the time I was 19, going into my sophomore year, I was coaching at the camp. After being a player there for 4 years, I was a counselor coach. And at 19 years of age, I'm coaching in what they call the NBA with the best high school players in the country. I'm coaching one of the
Mm,
teams, and the other coaches of other teams are like some of the best now then became college coaches in the country and later on, and they were at that time they were great high school coaches. So I learned, and then we had to teach for 3 hours a day stations where we're teaching different fundamentals, and so that's how I learned how to teach. And it's a background that prepared me for the point where by the time I was graduating from college when I was 21 years old, I was a full-time college assistant coach at a Power Five school, you know, with no experience other than basketball camps. And I'm 21 years old and I'm coaching against Al McGuire, Denny Crum, and people like that the following year.
wow.
And it was a joke, but that's how I was on such a fast track because of that background, frankly.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
It sounds like your atmosphere was like so conducive and so, like you said, such a fast track for your development and your communication style, how you relate to people, regardless of their background, their ethnicity, their creed. Talk about again just some more of like that time in the 50s and 60s with like the racial tension and all the things going on. Like you
Yeah,
guys have the New Jersey riots.
that's pretty insightful because where I grew up in North Jersey, uh, I guess I'm not sure. I want to say it was about 1960, and I'm like 10 years old thereabouts, and I lived in an all white town in North Jersey, half Jewish, half Catholic. But there was a river that separated our town from Paterson, New Jersey, which was a all black Hispanic town. And then 30 miles to the south was Newark, Jersey City. And in the state of New Jersey, which is, not as big as Atlanta metro area, seriously, geographically almost. Uh, probably we had 10 cities that had race riots. Camden, Atlantic City, Trenton, Orange, East Orange, Newark, Jersey City, Passaic, and Patterson, all these communities. And it was awful. They were burning everything down and stuff like that. And I was too young to be frightened because it wasn't in my town, but it was right freaking next door.
Yeah.
And it was closer than it was closer than Marietta to Buckhead. You know what I mean? It was
Mm.
way closer. It was really
Wow.
close. Yeah. And literally a river separated us and another town, and the river
Wow.
wasn't the Nile River. It was about 100. It was 100 freaking feet wide. And
Gotcha.
yeah, it was amazing. And but sports was the great equalizer. Because you would play against back then. There were many of the schools were segregated, but we had a summer league that UB started outdoors, and all the teams in our area were in it. And so some of the teams were all black, some were mixed, some were. But you know what? There was not an ounce of anything. It was
Yeah.
just we're
Just
friends.
hoop. Yeah.
Going to camp, we were all friends. And when I was growing up in high school and I was at Five Star as a camper, as a player, I one of the teams I played on one year was the best team in the camp, and we were undefeated, and I had a center on the team by the name of Donald Washington, who was John Thompson's stepson. He was 6'8". He adopted him, 6'8", and he went to the University of North Carolina. He was number 1 player in the country. And he and I were on the same team at Five Star. We got along like brothers. And John's the coach of St. Anthony's High School at the time. He's not a Georgetown coach. And but at the end of camp, he saw that we liked each other so much, and he asked me if I would come down and spend a week or two at their home in Washington
Mm.
with my friend. I said,
Wow.
sure. You know, he was my friend. He wasn't black. He was my
Yeah.
friend.
Yeah.
And so I went down there, and John lived in Southeast Washington, D.C., which nowadays I'm not sure I could get through there nowadays. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
I'm staying with John, and we played ball with the kids at St. Anthony's, which turned into the Georgetown team. And then when a year later I became the assistant coach at the University of Detroit. Dick Vitalis, my head coach, sent me down to Washington to go recruit all these great players. Well, I didn't know how to travel or anything like that, so
Mm.
I drove my car down there, and I don't know. Nowadays, I'd stay at a nice Marriott hotel. I called up John Thompson. I stayed at his house.
Wow.
The only college coach to go into St. Anthony's practices was me.
Mm.
No one else, was me, because I was his friend. And it was like no one could believe, because John had a wall around him. People thought he was militant. No, he was just a tough son of a bitch. He wasn't militant. I loved him, and he was disciplined, and he didn't take no bullshit from no one. And so, but I was like his other son, and it's just I marvel at that, and how he was such a great man. He was a man way ahead of his time, I thought, Coach
Mm.
Thompson. And it even though we lost him a couple of years ago, it was way too soon. He was such a special friend, and one of the toughest funerals I ever had to go to. But but that was how we grew up, and basketball for me and for many others, that was the way. That's how we that's how we developed relationships.
Yes, sir.
My kids, who are now older than you, when they were when they were 3, 4, 5, 6, up to 10 years old, all they ever knew was all of Daddy's friends are black, whether it be Dominic Wilkins, Isaiah Thomas, Dennis Rodman. Those are all Daddy's friends. They were colorblind. There was no better way, but that was not intentional. They were daddy's friends, and so when they were
Mm,
at my house, that's who they saw.
got you.
And and what a way to live, you know. And so that's probably the part that I feel frustrated at times because our world is so screwed up, frankly. But my hope is that I think sports is one of the great things of all time. I just finished watching the World Cup, France versus Argentina, and you didn't know there were so many blacks in France, did you? But you know the whole team is black. But man, can they freaking play, and they're great. And sport has brought the people in that country together, and that's what's beautiful about it. If you go to England now, London, Southeast London, it's all minority, and hopefully that's how it has to be done. And there is no different. We're all one, and that's one of my frustrations in life is that the world in non-sport, frankly, I don't know.
Got you. So talk about your transition into professional coaching. Like you coached with so many Hall of Fame coaches from UB, like you said, you started with them in high school to then coaching with him in Atlanta, Chuck Daly, Lenny Wilkins, Mike Fratello. Like, just talk a little bit about the differences in each one of them and their impacts on you and in the
And I
game.
think this will help the guys that are on the call.
Okay.
So when I'm in Atlanta, I'm 27, 28 years old. I'm now assistant with the Hawks. It's just Mike Fratello and I. There's only two of us. That's back then. Now they got like
Wow.
half of it.
11 coaches.
Half of Atlanta's an assistant coach with the Hawks now. You know, and we're having our first summer practice. This is not our fall training camp. This is like summer for the summer league. We're practicing at Cobb County Civic Center up there on off Delk Road.
Okay.
And that was where we had it. And so we were Central Division champs the year before. So I go to the first practice, 11 o'clock in the morning. There's 2,000 people filling the place. I am like I can't believe this, you know. And UB's about ready to get started, and it's me, him, and Fratello on the court. And I am shaking because I have no fucking idea what I'm doing. All right, I have no idea what to do. I don't know shit about pro basketball, and I think he can see that I'm nervous. And he walks up to me, and this is the lesson for the guys on the call. He walks up to me and he says, "Hey, listen, let me give you some quick advice. Do not try to imitate or be me.
Mm, powerful.
Be yourself. It's good enough."
Wow.
And that has been something that he told me a long time ago, 43 years ago, and I've never forgotten it. And it's something that I share with other people because I want them to feel the same way. Be yourself. Don't try to be Steve Kerr. Don't try to be Ime Udoka or some other guy. Be who you don't try to be Nate McMillan. Be who you are. And don't try to be Willie Green. Just be who you are. It's good enough because otherwise you're not authentic and the players will see right through it.
Yeah.
And so Yubi and Mike were incredibly similar. They had same mannerisms, same freaking hairstyle. They talked the same way. It was the damnedest thing. It was like he cloned him. And and Mike was one of my dearest friends. But I was totally different than him. But you know what? It worked. And everywhere I went, that's who I was, myself.
Okay. Okay.
And I think that's the biggest thing. That number one, just be who you are and be as we always say, be the best version of yourself, whatever that might be. But I think that's a really important thing. But what I did is I had not because I went to school and I learned this, I was wired to be open-minded. And even though I worked for UB, who was the best teacher, coach, clinician in the NBA, and just brilliant. When I moved on to work for Kevin Lockery, who replaced UB, and then back for Fratello when he became the head coach, and then when I went to Chuck Daly, I did never said, "Hey, I know I know more about this because I worked for you. I was
Mm,
I was totally open-minded to learn. So I always said that when I left the Hawks after 10 years and went to the Pistons,
mm.
UB and Mike had given me my bachelor's and master's degree in MBA coaching. Chuck gave me my PhD.
Wow.
He's the one that took everything in a matter of 6 months. After 10 years with those guys, after 6 months with those guys, with you, I mean, with Chuck, I almost completely flipped to everything he believed in,
Wow.
and took some of the things that I had, and we made it into this incredible style of play that I don't think anyone had ever seen or since. And it happened because he was very open-minded to learning what I could teach him, and vice versa. So we were giving to each other all the time, and that made the work relationship incredible. So that we worked together with the Pistons, then we went to the Nets, then we went to the Magic. And if he was 10 years older, we probably would have been four other places, because we just kept loving going into a place, fixing it, and moving on.
Where did Chuck get that ability to like galvanize and
Just
motivate and drive guys?
totally, 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 totally natural. It was,
Okay.
yeah, he didn't learn it anywhere. It was just completely uh, born. He was just born with it. There's never been a coach in the NBA that could connect with players better than him. And it wasn't like he learned it at some school. It was
Wow.
just within his DNA, and you
Yeah.
couldn't copy it. He had that innate ability to just walk up to, whether it's Isaiah, Dennis Rodman, or Bill Laimbeer, and just say the right thing at the right time. And that's a gift. You know, you can't try to. And you know what? And sometimes he would just say, I don't know. Or he would take the. He had also a great ability to take the blame if we did something wrong. He totally fessed up and said, "Hey, you know what? It's my fault."
Hmm.
No, very few coaches do that. They finger point at players all the time. But he just had this amazing ability to see things at a different level that I've ever seen anyone do in any sport. I really think he's one of the five best coaches we've ever seen in the world in any sport. He just had that incredible ability. And UB was similar, but UB left, was tough, and so he went after players.
Okay.
Chuck, Chuck wasn't like that too much. He
That's the complete opposite of what I would even expect or think if I was thinking about Hubie Brown versus Chuck Daly and trying to compare their personality. So that's super interesting that you
Yeah, UB could really go after you, man,
okay.
but that was his style. That
Yeah.
was, you
Yeah.
know, he was in high school. He was a football coach,
Okay.
baseball coach, and a basketball coach. Coached all three sports, and and he would tell you he's a better football and baseball coach than he is a basketball coach.
Hmm.
When we were coaching the Hawks, Ted Turner, the owner, offered him the job to coach the Braves, and he accepted. And then the Major League Baseball commissioner had to step in and said, "No, you're not going to coach." Like, you really wanted to coach the Braves. He
Yeah.
he loved baseball, man. Loved it. Yeah,
Wow.
probably would have done great too. He
That's
was
got to be like one of those untold, like, I don't know how many other people know that in Atlanta history.
only the inner circle, me, Fratello, and stuff like that. Because I think Fratello wanted to be the third base coach. I think he really did. Probably, yeah,
That's dope. Well, you guys heard it here first on the
yeah.
transition. So dive into, because you're already on the topic, the Bad Boys era, you guys being hated, in some circles within the NBA, obviously loved, by your fans and those who were, within the Pistons organization. But, the Jordan rules, like give us all the good stuff, man.
This is a 2-day course, or what is it? Yeah, no, I mean, uh, I would say I would say hated. We were misunderstood, but
Got you. Got you.
I mean, Michael Jordan's one of my best friends, and to this
Okay.
day, he says that, he said, you didn't have any Jordan rules. You just had Lambeer, Mahorn, Rodman, and Sally just knocking me down. That, but uh, the league was so different. The players were tougher. There was much more defense being played. Uh, Physicality was allowed. Um, Fighting was allowed, and so you know we made Michael the greatest player of all time because we beat him up so much. He had to get tougher physically and mentally to become who he was, and he
Yeah.
did. And but the competition was incredible. But what we had with the Pistons were basically what we didn't have the best players in the league. We had mentally and physically the toughest players in the league. They were so mentally strong. Their will to win was incredible. We had at least six of the 12 players were leaders, which is unheard of,
Right.
especially nowadays. Uh, there might be one leader on team and they think they're a leader because they're the highest paid, but they're really not
Right. Right.
leaders.
Right.
Uh, and these guys, they police themselves, and if one of them stepped out of line, they went after each other. We didn't have to do that, and they were amazing. They were competitive. They'd love to go and win on the road. They'd love to go into a building and absolutely silence a crowd on the road. They thought that was fun, where they go in there and go in and see the Chicago Stadium or the Forum or the Madison Square Garden, and literally people hating them to all of a sudden winning by 20, 25 points in the game, and you could hear a pin drop. They love that. It was a combination of high level competitive sports and WWE sometimes, but but there was never a dull moment with those guys. But
Got you.
they were fun to be around because they wanted to win so much. And I always thought it'd be fun to coach in the league where when you went out to play, you knew you were going to win almost every game.
Mm.
There's nothing like that. And my first year when I joined the Pistons, I didn't join them till right after the 1st of January because their assistant coach became the head coach of the Indiana Pacers, and I was I was basically the GM of the Hawks, and they made me an offer that was so incredible, and the Hawks didn't even try to counter the offer,
Mm.
and
Wow.
it was shocking. Uh, and so they didn't think I was going to leave because my wife was from Atlanta. I had two young kids. They just didn't. And Mike Fratello was the best man at my wedding. All this stuff. They just said he never going to leave.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they made me such a good offer that I had to. And so when I went there, I think the first game I ever coached, Joe Dumars broke his hand, and then was out for about a month. And so we struggled for a bit. But then when we got right around February, I think the rest of the season we were 56-10,
Mm.
and absolutely incredible. And it was, and ended up for this season like it's like absolutely ridiculous record of like we played 100 and something games, including the playoffs, and I think we won 63 games regular season and 50. I think we were 78 wins and 21 losses, including the playoffs. I mean, but 58-10, our last 68 games. It was like, and when we got beat, it was a shock. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
that's how good we were. So that was really fun, and it made coaching incredible. But there's nothing like coaching great players, and where they really want to win and they really want to do stuff. And they also taught me how to become a better coach, and I think that's one of the things I learned. A lot of things when I coached them, but one of the things I learned, like nowadays, I watch and I coach a lot of coaches where I'm consulting with them and college coaches, and I watch them do the term that is called a scout, where they're scouting their opponent and they're putting in what their opponent does, and I watch them to see how they're presenting it, how they're teaching it, how they're teaching how to defend it, and not one of them at the college level does what my players taught me to do, and that was simply
Mm.
this. So let's say we were going to defend a middle ball screen, Corey, and you show them the play that they're going to run, and you say, "Hey, here's CP3's coming off of the DeAndre Ayton, and here's what they're
Yeah.
going to do. They're going to put Booker over here. This guy's over there. Mikal Bridge is going to be here." And you go through all that, and college coaches then say, "And here's what we're going to do. Here's how we're going to defend it."
Okay.
What I learned to do with them was an amazing thing that I had never done with the Hawks, and that was simply this: Isaiah, how do you and Lambert want to defend it? I asked them what they wanted to do.
Hmm.
First of all, they're older, they're
Right.
professionals, they've seen everything, but they know the players, and they know, and you know what? Whatever they wanted to do, that's what we did. And reason being, because they owned it, number one. Number two, if it didn't work, we change it at a timeout. That's
Right.
all.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But what we did is we got so much buy-in, but they felt, and one of the key things in leadership is to make the people you work with feel that their opinion counts. When you work with people and you never ask the people you work with, what do you think? They're not engaged with you. So this taught me how to get my players engaged with what we're doing. All of a sudden, the scout reports became fun. Like, for instance, we didn't believe in trapping in the post back then, not because of 3-point shot, but because our guys were so good defensively that we also didn't want to give up second shots. And so if we trapped in the post, there's a chance that someone's
Right.
going to
Offensive rebounds. Right.
sure. And so I remember one day we're playing Utah, and Rick Mahorn's going to play Karl Malone. I said, and Mahorn's a great post defender, and I said, hey, they're going to run this play where they're going to, Hornacek's going to screen for Karl, and they're going to bring him from the high post into the low post on the left block. When the ball comes from Stockton to him, how do you want to play it? And Mahorn turns and says, "Hey B, I want to trap that motherfucker as soon as he gets off the bus." Okay. And that was fabulous. But that meant I can't handle him. So let's get the ball out of his hand. And you know what?
That's real.
That's real, man. I mean, you know what? And this guy is one of the best post defenders ever.
Correct.
But you know
Correct.
what? And all of a sudden, Karl gets so pissed off because he don't like being double teamed, and now he
Right.
can't get any shots.
That's right.
And so, but that whole psyche, that's what those guys were in. But they taught me that, and I thought that's great. And when I tell college coaches, this is what you have to do. You have to ask your players, your players, what they think. Oh, they don't know. They don't
Mm.
watch. They don't know. Well, you're assuming, but you're
Right.
assuming. Well, why don't you teach them how
Right.
to how to do that? If you're really
Right.
truly interested in developing them for the next level, make them think the game. And so it's another, again, got some guys not open to a growth mindset of them learning how to do something different, but also their players. Because
Yeah.
the number one thing in coaching players that I always say, Corey, is that every one of my players, no matter if, like when I was with the Hawks, I had Tom McMillan, who was a Rhodes Scholar, and it was a congressman afterward. He played for us. I had him, and I had other players that never finished 1 year of college
Yeah.
academic, you know.
Yeah.
But you know what? Every one of them had to get an A in our class of NBA basketball. They had to know what the hell we were doing. They had to know when we called out the play, this is what it is. When we say we're going to trap, they had to know what to do. They called side or under out of bounds play, they got to know what they're doing. That's teaching. And if they don't know, you know what the fans in the stands say? That guy can't coach.
Mm. That's
because
right.
your players didn't learn. And so my thing is, you have to teach them that in the class that you're teaching, which is their favorite subject, you got to teach them. And if you're the key in coaching is to take what many people think is very complex, make it simple. That's the whole essence of coaching and teaching. Why try to do something that's so freaking confusing that shit I don't understand it? Make it simple, man, because that is the beauty of a performance, is to make it simplistic so that they can perform under pressure. So
As always, coach, very eloquent, great breakdown. And so you guys, is it 89 and 90? You won two back to back?
88, 89, 88,
89.
89, we won in 89, 90. It was a back to back, yeah. 80. So technically June of 89 and June of 90. Yes.
What was your vantage point when you guys lost in the Eastern Conference playoffs to the Bulls, and that the whole infamous, you know, Isaiah kind of leading the players off the court, Mike taking it personally, it's publicized now. Was that like it caught you and Chuck off guard? Was that like discussed beforehand? Like what went on behind that?
Yeah. Yeah, that was not good. But what had happened is, we had dominated the Bulls for 7 years,
Mm-hmm.
and I think I think our record against them was like 37 and 10 or 12 over 7 years.
Wow.
And then finally, they had a really good team, and they had a better record regular season. They made a couple of changes in NBA rules that things that we had done, they now outlawed. We used to screen people. Basically, if you can picture this, we used to run a baseline offense called, people called floppy now. We called
Mm-hmm.
it motion, but where we would set staggered screens for Dumars or Vinnie Johnson coming off baseline screens, and Jordan would get right on their ass and follow them. And so what Vinny and Joe did is they would literally run right under the basket out of bounds.
Right, right, right.
And they would put their ass right in front of the basketball stanchion, and they would run Michael off that. And then our first screener Rodman would pick Jordan while he was still out of bounds for the first screen. And the second screen would happen as soon as he stepped on the court, and we crushed him. And so they outlawed screening out of bounds. To this day, you're not allowed to screen a player out of bounds.
Okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah, and so that made one change and stuff like that. So they made some rule changes and stuff like that. But so basically, when they finally got up 3-0 on us in the day in between games 3 and 4, Jordan held his press conference and basically said, not basically, but did say, the Pistons have been very bad for basketball. They're anything
Wow.
champions. They're terrible. They're this, they're that. And our guys really were mad. They were really hurt. And it was just disrespectful. Just win the series, shake hands, go home.
Mm.
No, but he had to step on them. This was his way of, rubbing it in. So as we had those guys out, we were down 20 in game 4. And so that was it. And so we had them out like the whole fourth quarter. The game was over. And literally on the bench, I can hear the starters basically saying, "We're walking out like right now," like in the start of fourth quarter.
Wow.
Yeah. And so, like, trying to say, don't do that. Don't do that, man. It's not the way to do it. Anyway, so they're good enough that they don't do it. And then what happened is, as the clock is running down, our locker room was in front of the Bulls bench. And so we had to walk in front of them. So as our players, as the clock is going 10, 9, 8, our players are leaving the bench to walk towards the locker room. And the referee sees them walking and stops the game. Blows the whistle, stops the game. And, when he does that, our players don't stop. They just keep walking. And half or 2/3 of them, the starters mainly, just walked right by them. John, Sally, myself, Chuck, the other coach, Brendan Malone, they stopped, shook hands and stuff like that. But, that's what you have. You do what you do. And to this day, Isaiah regrets it and stuff, but it was done. But it was all
Yeah.
because of what he said about them. That's all.
Yeah.
It was, I think, and you know what, that's gamesmanship, and and Michael was in their head after them being in his head for so long. So
right. Just passion.
yeah, so that's kind of what happened.
I only have a few questions left, Coach, but I love the way that
Sure.
you just break everything down. I want to make sure I give time for the other coaches to speak as
Sure.
well. Talk about your ability to connect and impact players that can be misunderstood. Like you named guys like Rick Mahorn,
Yeah.
Bill Lambier, Dennis Rodman, even Ben Simmons. Who's recently gone through some things. You coached him at LSU. Stephon Marbury.
Sure.
How have you had so much success with guys that maybe other coaches would fear coaching?
Yeah, I think it's not something you can go to school and learn, right?
Right.
It's who you are. I've always had a deep desire to just help people, and still do, and better at it now than when I ever was younger. And I think what you have to be, Corey, is you have to don't judge people by their reputation. Don't judge people by uh, things that you hear. Reputation is what you hear, or even
Hmm.
things you see. Judge them by the way I judge people by the way they treat me. Now, if you
Gotcha.
treat me like shit, fine, that's cool. But now I don't.
Now I know.
I
Right.
know, but now you're going to get that type of response. But I believe that there's four real ingredients to be a really good coach, and this is for those guys that are listening to really write down. The number one thing is you have to really be top of the line. You have to have uh, competency. If you have to be competent in what you do, because what happens is when you get out there and it's your turn to teach or coach or interact with them, if they can see through you and whether you know what the hell you're doing. So you better have competency. And then I've been blessed to also have credibility. So when I walk into a situation or join a new team or something, the players, my credibility has been established beforehand. So when I go coach Steph Marbury with the Knicks, he knows all about me. When I
Gotcha.
coach Isaiah and the Bad Boys, we had played them for years and they came and sought me out. I remember
Okay.
saying to Chuck Daly, I really hate the Pistons and I know they hate us, being the Hawks, because we had some really tough playoff series. I said, so why would they ever want me to come to help them? And he says, I asked them and they demanded you.
Mm.
Oh, okay. So, I mean, but that was the credibility factor and the competency, unbeknownst. The other three things that you need to really be a top of the line person as a leader or coach and or parent is you have to have integrity. You have to be a truth teller. Don't be bullshitting these guys and telling them what they want to hear. Tell them the truth. And I always ask them beforehand, are you coachable? And can I be truthful with you? And they always tell me yes. So now when I tell them the truth and they get pissed off, I'll say, you asked me to be truthful with
That's
you.
right. That's
And
right.
so I'm not being critical. I'm telling you
Hmm.
what I see.
Right.
And I'm trying to help you become better. Now, if you don't want to be better, that's not a problem. But don't tell me
Should have said no.
don't tell me
Yep.
you want me to be truthful. So integrity is huge. And if you tell them something, damn it, deliver. The second area after that is trust. They have to be able to trust you unequivocally. And if they can't trust you, you have no shot at coaching. And so, you know, if you're competent, you have integrity, you have trust, the last ingredient might even be, I'm not saying it's more important than the others, but if nothing else, Corey, I think it's the icing on the cake. And this is, I think, the one that really separates the good from the great. And that's caring. That you really show a player how much you care about them. Yeah, I ask college coaches all the time, football, because I talk to football coaches, basketball, and I'll say, how many of you would agree that you care about your players? They all raise their hand. I'll say, how many of you know the mom and dad of the player you coach? And most of them raise their hand. And I'll say, how many of you know the brothers and sisters of that kid? How many of you know, does your player have any illness, grandmother, grandfather, or mom or dad, anyone that sick in their family in the last 2 weeks? All of a sudden, no one knows shit. And so the caring goes up to just a superficial line.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so as you think about this, and for all the guys on the call, we all have a best friend, right, in life. And your best friend, you know everything about them. You know everything about their families. You know everything about, when shit's going bad. When that's the way you got to be with your guys, because otherwise, you know, but that's the difference maker all of a sudden when you talk to them about something that's really important to them, has nothing to do with basketball, that can be a breakthrough moment for you.
For sure.
And
For
so
sure.
I think if you take those four things, it really helps you excel to another level. And then there are no tough guys to coach.
Mm.
They're all my guys. They're all, every one
Mm.
of them. I don't judge them by, a lot of people would say Isaiah is one of the hardest people in the world to coach because he's a genius. He's smart as a whip, and he's tough. He's intimidating. He's powerful. Yeah, he is. All those things. But the one thing that every time to this day, 30 years after I've coached him, every conversation we have on the phone ends with this black kid from the west side of Chicago who had brothers that were the biggest drug dealers in Chicago, gets off the phone and says, I love you. That's when you know that's when you made it the thing where you talk about, I laugh, you talk about black and white and stuff like that. It ain't black and white, it's people to people, man. It's brother to brother. I remember sitting in a restaurant when we were at the Chicago pre-draft camp years ago, and we're sitting there talking to an agent about a player. Isaiah and I were running the Knicks, and this guy walks in the restaurant, and we're having breakfast, and this guy walks in the restaurant and said, God, he looks familiar. I've seen his face before. Isaiah's back's to the guy. He can't see him. I see him. So this guy locks eyes with me, but I don't know who he is, but I've seen him.
Mm.
As he comes, he stops at the table and he pivots because he knows who I am, but I have no idea who he is. And he looks and he goes, Zeke, Isaiah's nickname. Great to see you. Man, love to have you back in Chicago. It's Barack Obama.
Wow.
Senator Barack Obama. He knows Isaiah and I from the Bulls Piston days.
Wow.
Okay? He's a community organizer back then.
Wow.
He can't even get a ticket to a game. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He stops, and Isaiah still don't know who he is because he's like senator. Isaiah is living in New York with me, and he said, and everything. The guy's phenomenal. He walks away, and the agent we're sitting with, Mark Bartelstein from Chicago, says, that's Senator Barack Obama. He's on a fast track. Isaiah says, for what? Because he had only been in the Senate for 8 months. 8 months. And we were there for another hour or two. as he leaves his breakfast meeting, he walks by Isaiah said, Barack, great to see you. Let me know if I can help you. How about that? That's how good he was. He said, I'm gonna take you up on that. How about
Mm.
that? But that's how it works. And it's about I you know, I just think it's I just think it's I if you said to me what's the secret ingredient to coaching,
Yeah.
it's about loving your players, man. You gotta love your players. There are players that are a pain in the ass to coach, but if I don't love them or make them feel that I love them, there's going to be like one of my dogs. People I know is scared of. They're gonna be scared. They're gonna bark like hell, even
Yeah.
hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
not gonna bite no one, but guess what? Embrace him, love him, because you know what? No one else probably loved that guy if he's an asshole either. But you
Mm.
know what? Dennis Rodman had no dad, but he knew Chuck Daly loved him. And so he gravitated like you can't believe to Chuck. And he literally used to call, embarrassingly, Chuck, he used to call him God. And he called him my father,
Mm.
because he showed him love that he didn't have.
Wow.
You know,
Wow.
so that's the essence. If you said to me, it wasn't the pick and roll plays we ran or
Yeah.
18.
Yeah.
It was the other stuff that made that stuff work.
Powerful. Well, Coach, I have more questions, but I'm gonna go ahead and just open it
All
up to
right.
these guys.
Let's get these
Uh,
guys that paid this
yeah.
huge fee to come here.
For sure. For sure. Sean, Josh, if you guys have anything, you can unmute yourselves.
What's
What's
up,
up, Josh?
Coach?
How you
What's up,
feeling?
Josh? How you feeling? Good, good. Coach, I want to say it's an opportunity. It's a great opportunity to meet you. I do have a question for you. For a coach that's going from skills development and trying to get into assistant and head coach opportunities in college and the pro level, what is the strategies that I can use to make that thing come to pass? If that makes sense.
Sure, Josh.
Sure, Josh. You
Josh,
know,
where are you living now?
Oh, I'm in Atlanta, Georgia.
Okay.
Okay. Yes, sir.
And where are you
Where
coaching
are you coaching
or working now?
or working now? Right now, I got my own basketball program called Elevate to Greatness. I am coaching Milton Feeder. I've been doing that for the past 3 or 4 years. And I also like been doing a lot of internships with Corey with TSF Pro Training,
Good.
and just under Corey a lot. So just trying to figure out how can I, get into the groove and how I can make some things happen.
Josh, how old are you?
Josh, how old are you? I'm 28.
Young babies.
Young babies. Yes,
Uh,
sir.
uh, why do you want to be a
Why do
coach?
you want? I'm a leader. I'm a leader.
The answer should have been, I want to make a lot of money. No, I'm kidding.
You gotta stay humble, coach. You gotta stay humble.
Yeah, you got to pay the bills too. But there's nothing wrong with that. So I think it's really important that if you want to do that, figure out who in your circle is a college coach that you know. Write down the names of the guys that you know are college coaches that you might have a relationship with. And then you want to build on that. And you want to, don't be afraid to, if they are your friends and you do have a relationship with them, they'll be happy to take your phone calls. And do you have anyone in your circle like that?
I got a couple of people. Like I used to play at JUCO and at University of Southern Mississippi as well. But those coaches don't even coach there no more.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, that happens. But I mean, I think the biggest way at your age for what you're doing, I think, is basically through AAU stuff, where all of a sudden that's where all the guys are recruiting. And if you can be involved with an AAU team, or in helping coach one of those, or if you can't go to AAU events, and you get a chance to meet people. And I think that's also a good way to do it, because there's a lot of events out there, and people in that field are always looking for someone that can help them do a better job recruiting. And it's all about building legitimate relationships. Also, since you're in Atlanta, you know, going to see, either my friends at Georgia State, the twins are, they're fabulous guys that I helped when to get started, or, someone like Josh at Georgia Tech, really, really good people, where, all of a sudden you can, you know, get a chance to meet guys like that who have a big circle. But you got to, one of the things they want is that, if you want to be in the college game, you got to be aggressive, you got to know people, and you got to work. And then you got to be able to perform and deliver, both in the coaching, but more importantly in the recruiting. And one thing we do not want, and one of my pet peeves, is that if you're a young black coach, you do not want to get labeled black coach equals recruiter. Black coach equals coach. Okay. You got to be able to coach, because if you get a shot to coach, and you could only recruit, you're going to fall right in your face. That's no good. So you got to be able to coach. And that's why it's good to hang out with someone like Corey, who really knows how to coach. But I don't know if that's helpful, Josh, but that would be one of the starting points for me if I were you.
No, Coach, it was really helpful. Like I said, I have my own basketball program, so I started my program like 3 years ago. It's growing. It's not where I wanted to be yet, but like Corey tell me, it's a process.
Sure.
So I appreciate all that information that you gave me.
Yeah, you get one or two really, really good players. Oh my God, I feel better. I was nervous about that little hat. How you doing, sweetie?
I figure out what Daddy's doing. So
that's good. I like that.
yeah.
But I got to get one of those hats for Christmas. Yeah. But one of the one of the things that you get one or two good kids in your program, all of a sudden you'll have every college coach in the country there. Right?
Sure. Sorry about that. Yeah,
No problem. No, don't worry about that. I mean, if you get one of the best players in Atlanta that's playing in your program, all of a sudden, all those guys will be coming by to see you. That opens up all the doors. One of the most powerful guys in AAU basketball, one of my dear friends, Steve Reese, EYBL, but down in, he used to be Each One Teach One in Orlando, but now I think it's called Florida Rebels, I think. But Amari Stoudemire used to support his program, but now I think he's independent. But he has the best players in Florida every year. So this guy, every coach in the country's calling this guy. This guy's a power broker, and he's a high school coach at Oak Ridge High School on top of it. So he's really evolved the whole deal. And now the best sophomore in the state is his son. I could just see. I told Steve the other day, I'm going to have lunch with him this week when I go to Orlando. I said, I just can't wait to see the NIL for your son. Holy shit. It's going to be fun. But anyway, yeah, but I think that's what you want to do. You get some of those great kids that come out of Atlanta, and if you get one, man, it's a program separator. I mean, all of a sudden, then they're all coming to see you. And that really helps. And then when you get one good player, then what happens is other good guys, their friends, come with them, right?
That's good stuff, Coach. Great stuff. Josh, like you said, take your time in maybe your off seasons like now before you have your AAU tryouts. Go see a Georgia State practice. Go see a Georgia Tech practice. Pick the brains of those coaches if they'll allow it. Spend as much time just trying to expand your network. Peach Jam is in Atlanta. Well, it's not Atlanta, but it's in Georgia, so you make that drive after your AAU.
And you have the other stuff that's in Duluth, at times, and then the other crap, which is up.
Yeah, Lake Point, Swan.
Lake Point, yeah. Mm-hmm. But there's a lot of people that you can bump into on one day. The other thing is, when you have relationships, with the different guys, or my friend Amir Abdul Rahim up at Kennesaw, who's a really good guy. You go and you ask those guys if there's those college coaches, if there's any player you're recruiting that you would like to put on my team. Now all of a sudden they put them on your team, and you help them, but at the same time you gain their trust, and at the same time you got a great player in your program because this is not meant to be an Atlantic Celtic, or if they put them with another team there in town or in the state, they might not get the kid. You know what I'm saying? I'm just saying, I'm not saying the Celtics are like that. I'm just saying another known team, I'm saying.
No, that's a good one. That's a gem. That's a gem. Coach Sean, you got anything, my brother, before we let Coach Brendan go?
I do.
Hey, Sean.
Yeah, Coach, how you doing?
Good, man. I love it. You got my Yankee hat on. I thought it was your judge on the call. Holy cow.
I really take it off, man. Really take it off, even at the house.
I don't blame you, man. I don't blame you.
But Coach, great to see you.
Thanks.
Great gems, man. I was listening intently. I was driving, car wash, and I had to get on it, man. Couple things. Sure. What was your biggest challenge? Without calling anybody out, just I don't want anything like that. But what was your biggest challenge as a young coach on some of those teams starting when in your 20s and so forth? Just your biggest challenge. That's my first question.
I had a lot of players older than me. Yeah, I had. I mean, I remember. I remember I was coaching guys on the Hawks. I had about 6 guys that were older than me. But I did, but I couldn't do anything about it. So it was also an advantage that I was a lot younger than Yubi. So,
right.
And I didn't yell at them and curse at them like Yubi did. So it was they liked me better. I couldn't put them in the game though. but I think, Sean, the biggest thing is when you are young, then you have to wow them with your knowledge and what players I learned from the NBA, and it's really not different. It's just the correlation is slightly different. At the high school, college, and pro level, it's the same deal. At the pro level, a player will listen to you if you can help him get more minutes, playing time, and eventually make more money. Okay?
Right.
And so Ben Simmons didn't know me from nothing. But all he knew after just a week with me, I knew what the hell I was talking about. But then when I got to sit down with him and all of a sudden we talked, because here's a kid that was from Australia, came to the United States, went to Mount Verde, and ironically, he and his father were living 5 minutes from where I lived. Didn't know it, right? Never saw him play in high school. And he was, one of the top players in the country. But very quickly, he found out, he was going to not go to LSU because he was promised by going to LSU for 1 year that they would have a coach that had NBA experience that would develop him and fast track him. That was Eric Musselman, who used to work for me. Wow. Eric then takes the head coaching job at Nevada, and now they're going to lose Ben because they don't have anyone. And Eric tells the head coach, who I don't know, Johnny Jones, hire Brendan. Well, Johnny don't know me, so he's nervous because he don't know me. But David Patrick, the other assistant, quickly did a deep dive and said, this is who we got to hire. And then when Kevin Boyle, the coach of Mountain Verde, I had known for 30 years from New Jersey, right? And so Kevin and I were friends, and Kevin told Ben Simmons, only go to LSU if Brendan Suhr is the assistant coach. Otherwise, F them. So he called LSU and said, if you don't hire this guy, and I don't even know this, you don't hire this guy, he ain't coming.
Wow.
Right? Because you promised him you'd develop him. And there ain't no guy on your staff that has 2 championship rings and the gold medal and all this other crap. So he knew more about me than I really knew about him. And then we hit it off incredibly. But so that was, that's why I say credibility and competency, that gave me that heads up. But then Ben had to, my first meeting, my first week with him is I said, listen, high school kids that are highly rated, all they care about before anything starts is, where am I going to get drafted?
Mm-hmm.
And I want to be the first pick. I want to be this. So the first thing I said to him is, and I got his father, who's from Harlem. I don't know if Ben's daddy is from Dave.
Oh, I didn't know that.
From Harlem. Mama's Australian.
Okay.
White gal from Australia. Dave was playing in a pro league in Melbourne. Right. So Dave knows me from my NBA background, but doesn't know me in person, and said, go sit and talk to him, find out about him. And so I sat down with Ben the first week there, and I said, listen, I'm not worried about you becoming the first pick in the draft. I can get that done. What I'm more concerned about is you becoming Rookie of the Year, an NBA All-Star, and eventually the MVP. That's where I'm going.
Right.
Once you're drafted, it's over. Now that's like getting into college. That now you're in the league. It's the other stuff that I want to achieve, and that's kind of where the relationship went. But it's been a peaks and valleys thing, but he's starting to show some signs of getting back. So, but that's how I think when you have Sean young guys or people you don't know, or you're young, you have to wow them with your intangibles more than anything. And Corey, we didn't really talk about it with Josh, and Sean knows this, but being that having a servant leader mentality. There's a BJ Armstrong and Corey, Sean, BJ from our thing. I had this conversation with him this week, and I said, BJ, when you're a player in the NBA, all you care about is me, yourself. It's all about me. I don't care who you are. Kevin Durant, there's nothing wrong with that. They're performers. It's like being a singer. They don't worry about how's the rest of the band doing. No, I'm the performer. Everyone's paying to come see me. I have to perform. So but when you become a coach, it's all about the rest of the people on your team. It's not about you at all. So you have to really change your mindset. And so the mindset as a coach is about everyone but you. As a player, it's all about them. It's a small. BJ never thought of it, and he was a top of the world performer. So it's just something to share. Yeah.
One other quick question, if you don't mind, Corey.
You're good.
You got that hat on. You can ask them all, Sean.
Yeah. Thank you. Obviously, Coach, you've been coaching a lot of years. You coached, the 80s and so forth. The game was different then, which I know the game was different, more of a slow down game, more of a power physical game. What was your learning process from the way the game was then to now? Because going to coaching, you just really know about today's game. To be a consultant after all these years says a lot. So what was your process? You just study, what was that?
Sean, it's such a good point. And please, some of my best friends are college coaches, so I'm not bashing them. But my point is, college coaches, everything's about recruiting. Okay. Right. In pro coaching, everything's about winning the game. So guess what? If I have a really good play in the NBA and I really put something out there that's really good, we used to say it has a shelf life of maybe 2 weeks. And then they're going to see the Phoenix Suns stop it. And all of a sudden they're going to go, That's how we can stop Zion. Okay, this is what we'll do. We'll do this. And so you better have a counter to keep going. So we never stop learning. You have to have an incredible growth mindset. So I never have ever stopped learning. So I know way more now than I was when I was winning championships.
Wow.
Because I haven't stopped learning. I'm coaching. I'm learning. I'm talking to people. I mean, and the NBA coaches are calling me now and saying, "You've watched my team. What's wrong?
What do you think?" Yeah.
What are you thinking? What do you see? What do you see? And for instance, with one of my favorite people, I said the other day, every time it comes down to the last 4 minutes of the game, you don't run anything. You just come down and freaking whoever thinks that they're open, like it's the first 5 minutes of the game, they're jacking it up. And they're 1 for 11, you know, and we need a hoop. We need to get to the foul line. So I talked to them about at the last 4 minutes, there's what I call need plays or crunch time plays that you've never seen earlier in the game. So it's like an NFL game where all of a sudden you're watching the game and then all of a sudden you say, holy shoot, what a play they just
made.
Why didn't they run that earlier? Because they were saving that for later on when they
in their pocket.
Yeah. And so right now I see too many players in the NBA are the players that shouldn't be shooting or shooting at important parts of the game. That never would have happened back in our day. Because we would have taken that. We used to say, if the game's close, let us coach a little, you know, let us help you a little, you know, and we used to tease them and say, you know, in the big games or in the playoffs, they'd let us be involved, you know, when we had a good team. And that's when they need you. And so, but you better be able to, when the game is on the line, be able to get your best player shot. So I'm watching New Orleans against Phoenix last night. Yeah. And Monty Williams' team's been struggling, and all of a sudden down the stretch, hey, Devin Booker. And they don't have any way to stop him.
Yeah.
That's coaching. That's coaching. And Willie Green is a savant. He's phenomenal. You know that.
Right.
But you know what? And it was a tidal wave, and they couldn't stop it.
They couldn't stop it. Yeah.
So I think that's the biggest thing. Always keep your mind open to keep learning. And I'm not saying going on Twitter and looking for freaking plays. That's not where to go, man. You know, because all you see is, oh, yeah. But the real key is to figure out why it works. Why do you run it? And why do you run it then? And what happens if they stop it? What's the counter? To get the deep dive into stuff. And then there's a difference between being able to watch a play on TV, be able to diagram it, and be able to teach it. Big ass difference.
Absolutely. I appreciate it, Coach, man. Always. Thank you.
Love you, Sean. See you, buddy.
Love you too.
Great stuff. Great stuff. Coach, I've got one left, and then we're going to let you go. Talk about
I think the dogs ran away.
Oh man, I hope they did.
I hope not either, because I'll be spending my Christmas at your house if they did. Those dogs are more valuable to her than they are to me, than I am to her. That's for sure. Okay, sure. Go ahead.
Coaching in the CBA Development League. That's a league that doesn't exist anymore. Maybe the kiddos that are listening, and even some coaches don't know about it. But how did that affect you, where your coaching is concerned, and develop your ability to like install offensive and defensive systems?
Greatest experience of my life. Yeah. I had coached 15 years in the league, won championships, gold medal and all that, but I'd never been a head coach. And so all of a sudden when I had a break in one of my jobs, I think it was after the Nets, all of a sudden I had this opportunity to take a team. And now, back then, I only had 10 players in a team. I had no assistant coaches, no video person back then. And all I wanted to see if could my ideas that I have for the game, would they work with me as the coach? So what I did is I went and got a very young team, no player on my team. I had more than 2 years experience out of college. And I had the best team in the league. because they were so good. And they were really good players. I mean, really, really good. I had Devin Booker's daddy, Melvin Booker. Devin was conceived while he played for me. The water was good in Grand Rapids, but I had Ray Jackson from the Fab Five. I had Conzo Martin, who was a great
Wow.
coach. Yeah, so I had all these fantastic guys, and but what I found is that what, I really liked being a coach, and I really could coach, and the things that I believed in and did, and everything that Chuck and I did, we did in the CBA, and we were literally good enough. Our team was good enough that at one point we could have beaten like two teams in the NBA.
Wow.
That's how
Wow.
good.
That's saying a lot.
Yeah, as a team, that's how good we were, and it was life-changing experience, and to the point where after 1 year I liked it so much I had literally bought the team, and then I owned it for like 6 years. But then the following year, my brother Isaiah came to me and said, "I need you in Toronto," and I said, I can. I own this team. I love this. This is great. And I said, I can't do it. And he called my wife, and he told her that he needs me, and she packed my bags and sent me there, even though and so, I mean, he knew how to recruit.
Yeah.
And so it was great experience, and I loved it. And it was one of the great leagues of all time. And um, and it was 1 year older than the NBA at the time. And
Okay.
it was really sad that the league ended up, stopping, but it was fantastic league.
Awesome.
A lot of great players and a lot of great coaches too in that league.
Well, coaches, if you're listening, I don't know what your takeaway was from that, but I'm hoping that you hear, if you have the opportunity to lead, especially if you're trying to find your own coaching philosophy and figure out your voice, there's nothing better than being at the helm and having the chance to do that, even if it is not as glamorous as where you maybe have been as an assistant before.
That's right.
Yes, sir. But Coach, we want to thank you. So many gems from just your life story to your coaching background to all the different players that you touch. You share some stuff that I don't think anybody's ever heard outside of this Zoom.
Absolutely.
So thank you for that. We honor you. We want to give you your flowers now. And just appreciate you also for the constant mentorship you provide. I know you have so many other coaches that you do it for, but every time I text you, call you, you're right there. You pick up the phone and you give me more time sometimes than I deserve. So again, thank you.
No, hey, Corey, for you and Josh and, Sean, this is my life's mission, to help people that have the passion that you guys have. And the only thing I ask of you guys, and you're doing it already, Corey, is pay it forward, right? And help someone else out. That's all. Because someone took the time to help me. I never knew I was going to do this. I never knew I was going to ever speak at a clinic. I never knew I was going to write a book. I never knew I was going to do a freaking podcast. I didn't know any of this shit. But all I know is that when we, as things evolve, take the advantage to just help someone, and as always, I'm honored by our friendship. And and I look forward all the time to talking to you, and great to see you, Sean. And Josh, really pleasure to meet you, my friend.
Great to see you, Coach.
And look forward to hopefully, Sean, see you this summer, buddy. Be bigger.
Absolutely.
And yeah, man.
Absolutely.
But hey, you guys have a great Christmas and holidays and stuff like that for you and your families, and at 23 be better than 22, and it was pretty good, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Coach. Appreciate you.
Coaches out there, make sure you look up Coaching You. It's a great event, happens every summer in Las Vegas. They've got plenty of online resources as well as a live event that takes place. Like Coach Brendan Suhr mentioned, Coach Sean, myself, and some others, we took part in not only just the coaching experience, but the front office and executive event that they ran. So much basketball information, connections, networking opportunities. Coach Suhr, how can everyone follow you and find
Yeah,
you online?
yeah. At Brendan Suhr is my Twitter handle. At coaching_u is our coaching you Twitter handle. But I also recommend Corey that coaches get our Coaching You Plus app. It is absolutely incredible. Every clinic that we do, everyone that we're involved in, over 300 videos and things are involved for $9.99 a month. Go to coaching you letter U plus plus.com and you can find out all about it. If you have someone that likes you, have them give it to you as a Christmas present. If you don't have anyone that likes you, you're like me, just buy it yourself then, okay?
Good stuff. Good stuff. Well, that's it for us on the transition one-on-one with Coach Brendan Suhr. Everybody was tuning out or checking out. Make sure that you stay connected with us, follow us so that you can be up to date with all of our upcoming interviews with some more great coaches. Much love to you guys. God bless.
Thank you, guys. Love.